The German Shepherd limped through the station doors at dawn, its silver-grey coat matted with mud and something darker. Clutched in its powerful jaws was a child sneaker, size 6, blue with dinosaur patterns, saturated with blood that wasn't. The dog's own. The tag around its neck didn't say K9 unit, it said retired. Yet what this former police dog would lead detectives to discover would shake a city to its foundations and rewrite cold case files dating back 15 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The first light of morning had barely touched the windows of Lakeside Police Department when Sergeant Maya Rodriguez heard the scratching. It wasn't urgent, more methodical, patient, as if whatever was outside knew it would eventually be heard. Maya had pulled the overnight shift for the 3rd time that week. Budget cuts had hit the department hard, leaving the graveyard shift chronically understaffed. She rubbed her eyes, abandoned the incident report she'd been struggling to complete, and moved toward the glass doors at the station's front entrance. What she saw there stopped her mid-stride. A German Shepherd stood outside, perfectly still, except for heavy breathing that fogged the glass. The dog's coat was primarily grey with black markings, distinctive for the breed, but patches of it were caked with dried mud. One front paw was clearly injured, held slightly off the ground, but it was what the dog carried that sent a chill through Maya's body. A child's sneaker dangled from its mouth, blue canvas with cartoon dinosaurs marching across the sides, the kind parents buy for elementary school children at department stores. Except this one was soaked with blood, so much that it had dried to a rust color around the edges, but remained alarmingly red at the center. Maya pushed the door open slowly, careful not to startle the animal. The dog didn't move, didn't run. It simply watched her with eyes that seemed too knowing, too purposeful for a stray. "Easy there," Maya whispered, crouching to the dog's level. "Where did you come from, boy?" The dog's ears perked slightly at her voice. Then, with deliberate gentleness, it placed the blood-soaked shoe on the ground before her. Maya noticed a metal tag hanging from a weathered leather collar. She leaned forward carefully to read it. Sentinel, K9 Unit No. 458, retired 2020. A police dog, not just any stray, but a trained service animal that had once worn the badge. Maya reached for her radio. "This is Sergeant Rodriguez at front desk. I need Captain Harlow down here immediately, and someone from K9 Division." As she waited, Maya noticed that the dog, Sentinel, hadn't backed away. Instead, he'd settled onto his haunches, alert but calm, as if having delivered his message, he was now waiting for humans to understand its significance. Captain James Harlow arrived within minutes, sleep still evident in his eyes but posture instantly rigid when he saw the scene before him. Behind him hurried Officer Darius Wilson, the night shift's only K9 handler. "What the hell?" Harlow muttered, staring at the bloody shoe. Wilson approached the dog slowly, professionally, murmuring commands that made the animal's ears twitch in recognition. "He's one of ours," Wilson confirmed after checking the tag. "Retired 2 years ago after an injury. Belonged to Lieutenant Michael Torres." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Torres? Isn't he—" "Missing," Harlow finished, his face grim. "Disappeared 4 months ago while hiking in Blackridge Forest. Search teams found nothing." Wilson was examining the dog with practiced hands. "This boy's been through something rough. Dehydrated, paw laceration, at least 10 miles of travel based on the condition of his pads." He gently examined the collar. "Wait, there's something here." Tucked beneath the leather collar was a folded piece of paper, waterproofed in plastic wrap, secured with electrical tape. Harlow carefully extracted it, while Wilson kept Sentinel calm. The note inside was written in hasty, pressured script: 3 children. Cave system beneath the old Kelman property. Not alone. They're moving them tonight. Trust Sentinel. He remembers the way. The handwriting was unmistakable. Lieutenant Torres had trained half the department to file reports in his precise, economical style. Harlow was already moving. Wilson, get forensics on this shoe immediately. Rodriguez, pull satellite imagery of the Kelman property, everything we have for the last 6 months. And someone get this dog medical attention without destroying any evidence on him. Maya hesitated. Sir, the Kelman property is 30 miles. From here, if Torres is right and there are children in danger, then we have no time to waste, Harlow agreed. But we do this by the book. No jurisdiction conflicts, no compromised evidence. Sentinel had risen now, standing at attention despite his injury. His eyes remained fixed on the station's rear exit, the one that led to the vehicle bay. Wilson noticed. Captain, I think he wants us to follow him. He's exhausted, Maya objected. He needs treatment, and he'll get it, Harlow said firmly. But Torres sent him for a reason. This dog might be our only link. Within 20 minutes, a response team had assembled. Forensics had taken preliminary samples from the shoe and confirmed the blood was human, recent, and belonged to at least 2 different people. The Kelman property, an abandoned limestone quarry with a sprawling, derelict mansion, had been deserted since its owner's death 15 years earlier. Satellite imagery showed unusual vehicle activity in the past 3 months. Most disturbing was what the database search revealed. 3 children had been reported missing from neighboring counties in the past 14 days. All approximately the same age. All last seen near school bus stops. Sentinel received emergency medical care in the back of the tactical unit's van as they prepared to depart. The veterinarian, Dr. Lian Chen, worked efficiently while providing a running assessment. This dog has covered serious ground, she murmured as she cleaned his injured paw. Consistent with 3 to 4 days of continuous travel through rough terrain. He's also suffered blunt trauma to his left side, possibly a glancing blow from a vehicle or a fall. But what's remarkable is his condition otherwise. Meaning? Harlow asked. Dr. Chen pointed to Sentinel's coat beneath the dirt. He's been cared for until recently. Good nutrition, muscle tone. This isn't a dog that's been abandoned for months. Someone was looking after him, possibly right up until whatever incident preceded his journey to you. As they spoke, Sentinel's eyes remained alert despite his exhaustion. When the tactical team finished their preparations and approached the vehicles, the dog immediately struggled to stand. He wants to lead us, Wilson observed. Classic search and rescue behavior. Harlow made his decision. Officer Wilson, you'll handle Sentinel. Rodriguez, you coordinate with the field teams. I want constant communication and backup units from all surrounding jurisdictions. His gaze lingered on the bloody shoe, now sealed in an evidence bag. Whatever we're walking into, I suspect it's bigger than a simple missing persons case. As Sentinel was gently loaded into the K9 transport vehicle, Maya noticed something that sent another chill through her. The dog's eyes weren't frantic or confused. They were focused, determined, the eyes of someone with a mission. She'd seen that look before in human officers walking into situations they might not walk out of. This wasn't just a retired police dog that had stumbled across something terrible. This was a deliberate messenger, carrying a burden far heavier than the bloody shoe he'd delivered. And as the convoy prepared to depart, following a limping German shepherd into uncertainty, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something that had been hidden in plain sight for years, something that would change their department, their town, and their lives forever. What they didn't know yet was that Sentinel's journey was just the beginning, and the horrors they would uncover would test the limits of what they believed possible in their quiet corner of the world. As the convoy of police vehicles moved through the grey morning mist, Sentinel sat upright in the specialized K9 transport compartment. Despite Dr. Chen's insistence that the dog needed rest, he remained vigilant, his amber eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if calculating every turn. Officer Wilson monitored him closely, noting how the dog's demeanor shifted as they approached the county line, becoming increasingly alert, ears forward, body tense with anticipation. "He knows exactly where we're going," Wilson remarked to Sergeant Rodriguez, who rode in the passenger seat reviewing satellite imagery on her department-issued tablet. "This isn't just trained behavior. This is personal." Maya nodded, studying the topographical renderings of the Kelman property. The estate sprawled across nearly 300 acres of former quarry land, the limestone excavations having created a network of artificial caves and tunnels beneath the surface. The mansion itself sat atop the highest point, a Victorian monstrosity, built by Augustus Kelman, the mining magnate whose questionable business practices had made him both wealthy and notorious in the region. "The property has been abandoned since Kelman's death in 2007, Maya explained, scrolling through property records. "His heirs fought over the estate for years, but the environmental contamination from the quarry operations made it virtually worthless. It's been in legal limbo for over a decade." "Perfect place to hide something you don't want found," Wilson observed grimly. Captain Harlow's voice crackled over the radio. "All units, we're 5 miles out. Satellite thermal imaging shows no active heat signatures at the main residence, but there's significant interference from the limestone formations. Approach with extreme caution." As they turned onto the private access road leading to the Kelman estate, Sentinel suddenly became agitated. He pawed at the transport compartment door, a low whine building in his throat that raised the hair on the back of Maya's neck. "He wants out," Wilson said. "He's picking up something." Maya hesitated. "We're still miles from the main property. Protocol says, with all due respect, Sergeant, I don't think this dog cares about protocol. He's trying to tell us something." Captain Harlow's vehicle had pulled alongside them. Through the window, Maya could see the concern etched in his weathered face. She activated her radio. "Captain, Officer Wilson believes Sentinel is alerting to something in this area. Request permission to perform a controlled release." There was a moment of silence before Harlow responded. "Granted, but keep him leashed and proceed with caution. If Torres was correct about the timeline, we may already be too late." Wilson equipped Sentinel with a tactical K9 harness and attached a 15-foot tracking lead. The moment his paws touched the ground, the German shepherd's demeanor transformed completely. Despite his injury, he moved with renewed purpose, nose to the ground, following an invisible trail that only he could detect. "He's tracking," Wilson confirmed, allowing the dog to lead while maintaining control of the lead. "Specific scent, not general area search." Maya followed closely, hand resting on her service weapon. The morning fog clung to the trees lining the access road, reducing visibility to less than 30 feet ahead. The rest of the tactical team maintained position, creating a secure perimeter as Sentinel led them away from the road and into the dense underbrush. After approximately 200 yards, the dog stopped abruptly. His posture changed, head low, tail straight, body rigid, the classic indication of a K9 alerting to evidence. Wilson approached carefully, following the dog's eyeline to a seemingly ordinary patch of ground covered with fallen leaves and forest debris. "He's found something." Maya signaled to the evidence technician who had accompanied them. Together, they carefully cleared away the surface material, revealing what had captured Sentinel's attention, a small backpack, partially buried and covered with dirt. The blue canvas material was faded, but still clearly recognizable as a child's school bag. Embroidered on the front flap was a name: Jacob T. "Jacob Turner," Maya whispered, recalling the case files they had reviewed before departure. 9 years old, disappeared walking home from school 11 days ago. The evidence technician photographed the scene before carefully excavating the backpack. Inside, they found typical school supplies, a lunchbox with food now molded beyond recognition, and a small plastic dinosaur keychain attached to the zipper, matching the pattern on the bloody shoe Sentinel had delivered to the station. Captain Harlow joined them, his expression grim as he surveyed the discovery. The backpack is Jacob's, but where is Jacob? As if in answer, Sentinel tugged at his lead, clearly intent on continuing. Wilson glanced at the captain, who nodded his authorization. They proceeded deeper into the woods, the terrain becoming increasingly difficult as they approached the old quarry boundaries. Limestone outcroppings jutted from the forest floor, and the vegetation thinned, revealing glimpses of the abandoned quarry operations ahead. Sentinel's pace quickened, despite his injury. He led them to what appeared to be an abandoned maintenance shed, a simple metal structure partly reclaimed by nature, its exterior rusted and covered with climbing vines. The door hung partially open, its padlock broken and discarded on the ground. The tactical team moved into formation, securing the perimeter as Captain Harlow made the call. Breach and clear. Rodriguez, you and Wilson maintain position with the dog. Maya watched as the tactical officers methodically cleared the small structure, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness within. After a tense minute, the all-clear signal came through, followed by the team leader's voice, tight with controlled emotion. Captain, you need to see this. Inside the maintenance shed, the evidence of its recent occupation was unmistakable. A folding table held maps of the area with routes marked in red between school bus stops and the Kelman property. A wall displayed photographs of children, at least a dozen different faces, some with dates and notations written beneath them. 3 photographs were circled in red marker: Jacob Turner, 9, Mia Reyes, 8, and Elliot Chen, 10. The 3 children reported missing in the past 2 weeks. But what drew Maya's attention was a weathered bulletin board covered with older photographs, yellowed and faded with age. Some dated back 15 years or more, all children, all with similar notations. This isn't new, she said, the realization settling like ice in her stomach. This has been happening for years. Captain Harlow was examining a logbook found in a locked drawer, its pages filled with precise handwriting detailing dates, locations, and cryptic codes. This operation is organized, he noted. Multiple perpetrators, established protocols. The question is, why here? Why the Kelman property? From outside, Wilson called urgently, Captain, Sentinel's got something else. They emerged to find the German Shepherd standing at the edge of a narrow path leading toward the quarry face, his attention fixed on something only he could sense. When Wilson gave him the command to proceed, Sentinel moved with renewed determination, leading them along a path that would have been nearly invisible to human searchers. The path descended into what had once been the primary excavation area of the quarry, a massive pit with terraced levels carved into the limestone. Nature had reclaimed much of it. Trees grew from the higher terraces, and groundwater had created a small lake at the bottom. But Sentinel wasn't heading toward the pit itself. Instead, he led them to what appeared to be a service entrance cut into the quarry wall, a tunnel reinforced with timber supports leading into darkness. This must connect to the cave system Torres mentioned, Maya observed, examining the entrance. Recent activity, she added, pointing to fresh tire tracks in the mud. Vehicle with a narrow wheelbase, ATV possibly. Captain Harlow didn't hesitate. Rodriguez, coordinate with dispatch. I want geological surveys, quarry blueprints, anything that shows what's down there, and get the specialized search team mobilized. He turned to Wilson. Officer, can Sentinel track in these conditions? Wilson glanced at the dog, who stood at the tunnel entrance, his posture communicating an urgency that transcended training. Yes, sir. He's not just tracking, he knows this place. Maya made the necessary calls while the tactical team prepared for underground operations. Additional units were en route, including a specialized cave rescue team and a mobile command center. But time was against them if Torres's warning was correct. They're moving them tonight. As they prepared to enter the tunnel, Dr. Chen approached with concern, evident in her expression. That dog needs rest. His injury is worsening. Wilson examined Sentinel's paw, noting the fresh blood on the bandages. The dog had pushed himself beyond normal endurance, but showed no signs of wanting to stop. When Wilson attempted to lead him back to the vehicle for treatment, Sentinel resisted, straining toward the tunnel with unmistakable determination. "I don't think he's going to stand down," Wilson admitted. "Not until we find what he's leading us to." Dr. Chen reluctantly applied fresh bandages and administered a mild analgesic. "This is against my professional recommendation," she said firmly, "but I understand the stakes." Equipped with tactical gear, headlamps, and communication equipment designed to function underground, the team prepared to enter the tunnel. Sentinel would lead, followed by Wilson and Maya, with the tactical team securing their progression and evidence technicians documenting everything. Before they entered, Captain Harlow addressed the assembled officers. "What we've found suggests we're dealing with a long-standing criminal operation involving child abductions. Lieutenant Torres may have infiltrated this operation before his disappearance. Remember, our priority is locating and securing the safety of any victims. Establish a communication relay every 100 feet. The limestone will interfere with radio signals." The tunnel air was cool and damp, carrying the mineral scent of limestone mixed with the musty odor of long abandonment. Their headlamps illuminated a passage that had clearly been part of the original mining operation, with support beams and electrical conduits still visible along the walls. But as they progressed deeper, evidence of more recent modifications became apparent. Fresh timber reinforcements, modern LED strip lighting installed but currently powered off, and newly laid gravel on the tunnel floor to facilitate vehicle movement. Sentinel moved with confidence, no longer needing to track a specific scent. He knew this path, navigating without hesitation even when the tunnel branched. At each junction, Wilson confirmed the dog's choice by checking for signs of recent passage, disturbed gravel, scuff marks on the walls, the occasional discarded item. Approximately 500 yards into the tunnel system, they discovered the first security measure, a sophisticated motion sensor mounted discreetly on the ceiling, its power indicator showing it was currently inactive. "Someone's turned off the security system," Maya observed. "Either they're confident no one's coming or they're in the process of moving out," Captain Harlow finished grimly. They proceeded with increased caution. The tunnel began to widen, clearly transitioning from a natural formation enhanced by mining operations to a deliberately expanded underground facility. The air quality changed as well, suggesting artificial ventilation. Sentinel's behavior shifted, subtly. His pace slowed, and he moved with the stealth characteristic of police canines approaching potential threats. Wilson recognized the change immediately. "He's detecting human presence ahead," he whispered. "Recent and possibly still present." Captain Harlow signaled for tactical formation. The team adjusted their positions, weapons at ready position, though not yet drawn. They rounded a final bend in the tunnel and found themselves facing a set of modern steel doors, completely incongruous with the surrounding raw limestone walls. The doors stood partially open, as if someone had left in haste. Beyond them, fluorescent lights flickered erratically, illuminating what appeared to be a converted underground storage area, approximately 40 feet square. Metal shelving lined the walls, holding various supplies and equipment, In the center stood several examination tables with medical monitoring equipment. Computer workstations occupied one corner, their screens still glowing with active displays. But it was what they found secured to the far wall that stopped them cold. 3 small cages, sized for children, 2 of them empty with their doors hanging open. The third still contained a small figure, curled into a protective ball, unmoving. "Med team now!" Captain Harlow ordered, the professional calm of his voice belying the horror evident in his eyes. As medical personnel rushed forward, Sentinel suddenly tensed, a low growl building in his throat. His attention was fixed not on the cages, but on a narrow passage leading off from the main chamber, a passage where shadows seemed to shift with subtle movement. Wilson immediately recognized the dog's alert. "Contact," he warned, just as a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in his 40s, wearing what appeared to be a lab coat over casual clothes. He held something in his hand that the tactical team instantly identified as a remote detonator. "That's far enough," the man said, his voice surprisingly steady. "This facility is wired with enough explosive to bring down the entire tunnel system. One press and none of us are leaving." Captain Harlow stepped forward cautiously, hands visible. "Sir, you're surrounded by armed officers. Whatever is happening here, we can resolve this peacefully." The man smiled thinly. "You have no idea. What's happening here? No comprehension of the work we've been doing." His gaze fell on Sentinel, and his expression hardened. "That dog shouldn't be here. Torres promised he'd been neutralized." At the mention of Lieutenant Torres's name, Sentinel's growl deepened, his body coiled with tension that Wilson struggled to control. The dog clearly recognized this man, and the recognition triggered not the alert behavior of tracking, but the aggressive stance of confronting a known threat. Maya observed the interaction carefully, noting the man's reaction to Sentinel. "Where is Lieutenant Torres?" she demanded. "Probably where I left him," the man replied coldly. "At the bottom of the quarry lake. He should have stayed out of our business." His finger tightened slightly on the detonator. "Like all of you should have." Captain Harlow maintained his calm approach. "Sir, there's a child still in that cage who needs medical attention. Whatever your grievance, that child is innocent." Something flickered in the man's eyes. Not compassion, but calculation. "Specimen 3 is property of the Ascension Project. As are the others, you're too late to recover." He glanced at his watch. "The primary subjects have already been transported. This facility has served its purpose." The tactical team had been slowly establishing positions throughout this exchange, coordinating silently through hand signals. Maya caught Captain Harlow's subtle nod. They were in position to act if an opportunity presented itself. That opportunity came in a form none of them expected. From deeper within the passage behind the man, a voice called out, weak but determined, "Phillips, don't." The man, Phillips, turned slightly, his concentration broken for a crucial moment. "Torres, how are you still—" In that instant of distraction, Sentinel lunged forward with explosive force that even Wilson's firm grip on the lead couldn't restrain. The German shepherd launched himself directly at Phillips, targeting not his body, but the hand holding the detonator. His powerful jaws clamped around the man's wrist with precisely controlled pressure, enough to immobilize, but not maul exactly. As he had been trained for disarming suspects, the tactical team moved instantly, securing Phillips while carefully retrieving the detonator that had fallen from his grasp. Within seconds, the threat was neutralized, the suspect restrained, and the detonator secured. Wilson rushed to Sentinel's side, expecting to find the dog maintaining his hold on the suspect. Instead, the German shepherd had already released Phillips and was pushing his way past the officers into the passage from which the voice had come. Maya followed, weapon drawn, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of the narrow corridor. Approximately 20 feet in, the passage opened into a smaller chamber that appeared to be a makeshift cell. Seated against the wall, battered and clearly weakened but very much alive, was Lieutenant Michael Torres. Sentinel had already reached him, pressing against the lieutenant's side as the man weakly raised a hand to stroke the dog's head. "Good boy," Torres whispered hoarsely. "You did it! You found them!" Maya holstered her weapon and knelt beside him, quickly assessing his condition. Torres was severely dehydrated, with multiple contusions, and what appeared to be a poorly treated gunshot wound to his left shoulder. Despite his condition, his focus remained clear. "The children," he managed to ask. "Did you find all three?" "We found one still here," Maya informed him as medical personnel arrived to take over. "The others were moved, according to Phillips." Torres grabbed her arm with surprising strength. "There's more than just three, many more. This has been going on for years. They call it the Ascension Project. They're not just kidnapping these children, they're experimenting on them." As paramedics stabilized Torres for evacuation, he continued providing critical information. He had been investigating a pattern of child disappearances across 3 states, all with similar characteristics. Children between the ages of 8 and 10, all exhibiting above-average intelligence, all vanishing without witnesses. His investigation had led him to Augustus Kellman's grandson, Dr. Elias Kellman, a neuroscientist whose research into cognitive enhancement had lost funding after ethical violations. "They're using the children for experimental treatments," Torres explained weakly, "trying to accelerate cognitive development through a combination of chemical and electrical stimulation. Most don't survive the process." The child found in the cage, a boy later identified as Elliot Chen, was immediately transported to the Regional Pediatric Trauma Center. Initial assessment indicated severe malnutrition and signs of medical experimentation, but he was stable and expected to survive. As evening approached, the Kellman property had been transformed into a massive crime scene. The FBI had arrived to take jurisdiction, and forensic teams were methodically documenting every aspect of the underground facility. The communication equipment recovered from the computers indicated that the operation extended well beyond this single location, with evidence pointing to at least 3 other facilities in different states. Phillips, identified as Dr. Andrew Phillips, formerly of the National Neurological Research Institute before being dismissed for ethical violations, refused to cooperate, invoking his right to counsel. But the evidence he had failed to destroy painted a disturbing picture of an operation that had been refining its techniques for over a decade. In the mobile command center established at the property entrance, Maya sat reviewing the preliminary findings with Captain Harlow. The scope of what they had discovered was still expanding. Records indicated that at least 27 children had been processed through the facility over the past 15 years. Only a handful were listed as successful transitions, their current whereabouts unknown. They weren't just experimenting on these kids, Maya said, her voice hollow with contained emotion. They were transforming them into something else. The notes refer to augmented cognitive architectures and transcendent neural pathways. They believed they were creating a superior form of human intelligence. Captain Harlow nodded grimly. At the expense of children who couldn't consent and families who will never know what happened to their kids. He looked through the command center window to where Wilson sat with Sentinel, the dog receiving well-deserved care and attention from the medical team. If not for that dog's determination, we might never have found this place. By the time we noticed the pattern, they would have abandoned the site completely. Maya followed his gaze, watching as Sentinel leaned against Wilson, accepting water and gentle praise. Despite his ordeal, the dog remained alert, his attention frequently turning toward the ambulance where Lieutenant Torres was receiving treatment before transport. It wasn't just determination, Maya observed quietly. It was loyalty to Torres, to his training, to what he knew was right. Even after they tried to kill him, Torres said they shot Sentinel and left him for dead before throwing Torres into the quarry lake. He still found his way back, still remembered the mission. As darkness fell over the Kelman property, the full horror of what they had uncovered continued to unfold. The two missing children, Jacob Turner and Mia Reyes, had indeed been transported from the facility earlier. That day, according to timestamps on the security footage, their destination appeared to be another facility, referenced only as Site Omega in the recovered files. But they also found hope. Lieutenant Torres, though seriously injured, was expected to recover fully. The intelligence he had gathered during his undercover work provided crucial leads for locating the other facilities and potentially rescuing more children. And perhaps most significantly, they discovered detailed records that might finally bring closure to dozens of families whose children had disappeared without a trace over the years. As the command center prepared for the night shift, Maya took a moment to step outside, the weight of the day's discoveries pressing heavily on her. She found Wilson sitting on the tailgate of a tactical vehicle, Sentinel dozing beside him, finally surrendering to exhaustion now that his mission was complete. "How is he?" Maya asked, nodding toward the German shepherd. Wilson smiled faintly. "Exhausted, dehydrated. The wound on his paw needs surgical debridement, but he'll recover." He glanced toward the ambulance where Torres was being prepared for transport. "They both will." "What will happen to him now?" Maya asked. "Sentinel. He was officially retired." Wilson scratched gently behind the dog's ears, earning a slight tail wag even in sleep. "That's up to the department. And to Torres, I suppose. But after what he did today..." He shook his head in quiet amazement. This dog remembered a location he'd only been to once, traveled miles with a serious injury, and led us precisely to where we needed to go. That kind of intelligence and loyalty doesn't retire. As they spoke, Captain Harlow approached, his face showing the strain of the day, but his eyes clear with purpose. "I just got word from the hospital. Elliot Chen is conscious and asking for his parents. They're en route now." He looked down at the sleeping German shepherd. "Doctor says if he'd been found just a few hours later, the outcome might have been very different." The significance wasn't lost on any of them. Without Sentinel's determination to bring the bloody Shu to the station, without his remarkable memory and unyielding persistence, they would never have found this place in time. Captain Harlow knelt beside the sleeping dog, gently placing a hand on his side. "We're going to find the others," he promised quietly. "And when we do, it will be because of what you started here today." As night settled fully over the quarry, the investigation continued under powerful lights that pushed back the darkness. The secret that had been hidden beneath the Kelman property for 15 years had finally been exposed, not by sophisticated technology or brilliant deductive work, but by the simple, powerful loyalty of a dog who refused to abandon his partner or his purpose. And as Sentinel slept, his mission temporarily complete, the bloody shoe that had started it all was being carefully processed in the mobile forensics lab, the first link in a chain of evidence that would ultimately unravel a conspiracy of unfathomable cruelty and bring long-delayed justice to families who had all but abandoned hope. What none of them yet realized was that Sentinel's journey wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The trail he had helped uncover would lead them into darker places still, and ultimately to a confrontation with forces more powerful and more dangerous than they could imagine. Dawn broke over the Kelman property, painting the abandoned quarry. In hues of amber and gold that belied the darkness investigators had uncovered beneath its surface. The mobile command center hummed with activity as federal agents coordinated with local law enforcement, piecing together the fragmented evidence of what was rapidly proving to be one of the most disturbing criminal enterprises uncovered in recent history. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez had grabbed barely 3 hours of sleep in a cot set up in one of the tactical vehicles. She now stood reviewing the preliminary forensic reports, a cup of black coffee clutched in her hand, its bitterness matching her mood as the full scope of the operation continued to reveal itself. "The blood analysis came back," said forensic technician Jasmine Patel, sliding a tablet across the makeshift conference table. The shoe Sentinel brought to the station contained DNA from 2 sources, Jacob Turner and a second sample that doesn't match any of our known victims. Maya frowned, scrolling through the report. "Unknown female subject number 1, she read aloud. Adult female, approximately 25-35 years old, based on cellular markers. Genetic indicators suggest possible familial relation to subject Turner. Jacob's mother died when he was an infant," Captain Harlow noted, entering the command center with a fresh stack of files. "His aunt had custody, Charlotte Turner, 34. She's the one who reported him missing." Maya looked up sharply. "Charlotte Turner is missing too. She wasn't at her residence when we sent officers to notify her of our findings." "Get a DNA sample from her home," Harlow ordered immediately. "If that's her blood on the shoe, it changes our understanding of the abduction methodology." The investigation had evolved substantially overnight. What had initially appeared to be an isolated child abduction operation had revealed itself to be something far more sophisticated. The computers recovered from the underground facility contained encrypted files that FBI cybersecurity specialists were still working to crack, but the fragments already deciphered painted a disturbing picture. "The Ascension Project isn't just about the children," Maya explained, pinning additional documents to the evidence board. "It's a multi-phase program. Phase 1 involves adult subjects, primarily caregivers of the targeted children. They're being used for preliminary testing of the enhancement protocols." "Human experimentation," Harlow said grimly. "With a specific purpose," Maya continued. "According to Dr. Phillips's notes, they believe the neurocognitive treatments are more effective in developing brains. The adults serve as proof of concept and protocol refinement, but the children are the primary objective." The tactical team had spent the night securing the entire underground complex, discovering additional chambers that served specific research functions. Most disturbing was what they had designated Chamber 7, a room containing 6 cryogenic storage units. Only 2 were empty. The remaining 4 contained human remains in various states of preservation, each meticulously catalogued with experiment numbers rather than names. At the veterinary field station established near the command center, Dr. Chen was completing her morning examination of Sentinel. The German Shepherd had responded well to treatment, his wounds cleaned and properly dressed, his dehydration addressed with IV fluids administered overnight. He sat patiently as she checked his vitals, but his attention remained fixed on the medical transport vehicle parked nearby, where Lieutenant Torres was being prepared for transfer to the Regional Trauma Center. Officer Wilson appeared with a specialized canine meal prepared according to Dr. Chen's instructions. "How's our hero this morning?" he asked, setting down the bowl within Sentinel's reach. "Remarkably recovered," Dr. Chen replied, removing her stethoscope. "I've seen military working dogs push through worse injuries in combat zones, but what's impressive is his continued focus. Most dogs would be completely shut down after such an ordeal." Wilson nodded, watching as Sentinel ate with disciplined efficiency. "He's not an ordinary police dog. Torres trained him personally outside of standard protocols, said he had potential beyond the usual service parameters. The K9 handler's radio crackled with Captain Harlow's voice. "Wilson, is Sentinel cleared for limited duty? We have a situation that might require his capabilities." Wilson glanced questioningly at Dr. Chen, who hesitated before nodding reluctantly. "Limited tracking only. No pursuit, no apprehension. His paw needs at least another 48 hours of recovery." "He's cleared for restricted duty, Captain," Wilson confirmed. "What's the situation?" "Meet us at the northeastern perimeter. We've found another access point." The access point turned out to be a carefully concealed entrance to a secondary tunnel system, located approximately half a mile from the main facility. Unlike the primary entrance, which had been designed for equipment transport, this passage was narrower, clearly intended for emergency evacuation rather than regular use. Sentinel approached the entrance cautiously, his posture indicating recognition rather than discovery. He had known about this passage, too. Lieutenant Torres must have found this during his initial investigation, Maya observed, as the tactical team prepared to secure the new tunnel system. Captain Harlow nodded, "Which means it likely connects to wherever they were holding him captive." He turned to Wilson. "Can Sentinel lead us through without aggravating his injuries?" "He's indicating he wants to proceed," Wilson confirmed, observing the dog's body language as he stood at the entrance, tail straight, issues forward, the classic posture of a working dog awaiting deployment. The tunnel was significantly different from the main passageways they had explored the previous day. Where the primary system had been reinforced and modernized, this route remained largely in its natural state. A narrow limestone passage, barely wide enough for two people to walk abreast. Their headlamps illuminated slick stone walls that occasionally gave way to broader chambers where the ancient quarry operations had created natural caverns. Sentinel moved with careful precision, his bandaged paw held slightly elevated, but his pace steady and purposeful. Unlike his tracking behavior from the previous day, he now moved with the methodical certainty of a guide who knew the destination rather than a tracker following a scent. Approximately 300 yards into the tunnel system, they encountered the first sign of recent human presence, a security camera mounted discreetly on the ceiling, its power indicator dark. "Same model as the ones in the main facility," Maya noted, "but this one's been manually disabled. See the cut wires?" The implication was clear. Someone had intentionally compromised the security system during their escape. They proceeded deeper, the passage gradually descending. The air grew cooler, with a noticeable increase in humidity suggesting proximity to groundwater. Sentinel paused occasionally, seemingly to orient himself, but never hesitated for long. After nearly 20 minutes of careful advancement, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber that showed signs of recent occupation. Folding tables held computer equipment that had been hastily dismantled, with empty mounting brackets and severed cables indicating that critical components had been removed. One wall featured a large map of the United States with multiple locations, marked in red, all but 3 of which had been crossed out in black marker. "Collection sites," Maya surmised, examining the remaining active markers, "possibly where they're relocating operations." Captain Harlow was already on his secure satellite. "Phone relaying coordinates to the FBI command team. The locations, one in northern Montana, one in eastern Nevada, and one in coastal Maine, were all in remote areas with minimal population. We need surveillance on all 3 locations immediately," he instructed. "No approach until we confirm. Which one's active?" While the team documented the chamber's contents, Sentinel had continued his exploration, moving toward a narrow opening in the far wall that would have been easy for the human team to overlook. Wilson followed, allowing the dog to lead them into what appeared to be a natural limestone fissure, barely wide enough for a single person to navigate sideways. The passage extended approximately 15 feet before opening into a smaller chamber. That elicited an audible gasp from Wilson. "Captain, you need to see this." The chamber had been converted into a monitoring station overlooking what could only be described as a holding area. Through a reinforced glass window, they could see a larger space containing 6 medical-grade isolation cells, essentially glass-walled rooms equipped with hospital beds and monitoring equipment. 4 of the cells were empty, but 2 still contained occupants, an adult woman, approximately in her 30s, lying unconscious but alive according to the active vital sign monitors, and a child who matched the description of Mia Reyes, the 8-year-old girl who had been missing for 9 days. "We found them," Maya breathed, already reaching for her radio to call in the medical team. "But where's Jacob Turner?" The monitoring station contained additional evidence that would prove crucial to the investigation. A logbook detailed the transfer schedule for all 3 recently abducted children, as well as their adult control subjects. According to the entries, Jacob Turner and his Aunt Charlotte, confirmed to be the unconscious woman in the isolation cell, had been designated for Phase 3 testing at what was referred to as Site Omega. Most disturbingly, the final entry, dated just 12 hours earlier, noted Subject Turner, juvenile, deemed compatible. Partial integration successful, proceeding with full protocol at primary facility. Captain Harlow studied the surveillance. Monitors that showed additional angles of the holding area. "Where's the access point to those cells? I don't see a door from this side." Wilson was reviewing the control panel beneath the observation window. "It's a separate access system. These cells are designed to be entered only from another section of the facility, likely as a containment protocol." Sentinel, meanwhile, had moved to a different part of the monitoring station. He stood before a metal cabinet, pawing gently. At its base, with his uninjured foot, Wilson approached and discovered the cabinet was unlocked. Inside, they found precisely organized medical files, detailed records of every subject processed through the facility over the past 15 years. These aren't just experimental records, Maya realized as she began reviewing the contents. They're selection criteria. They were specifically targeting children with certain genetic markers. She held up a particularly disturbing document. "This looks like a compatibility assessment. They were screening for specific neurological traits before abduction." The full tactical and medical teams arrived within minutes, and the priority became accessing the isolation cells to retrieve Mia Reyes and Charlotte Turner. The layout of the facility presented significant challenges. The cells had been deliberately designed with restricted access points to prevent escape. After reviewing the structural plans recovered from the monitoring station, they identified the primary entrance to the holding area, a reinforced door accessed through yet another tunnel branch approximately 50 yards back from their current position. The tactical team proceeded to secure the route while medical personnel prepared for immediate patient evacuation. Captain Harlow remained in the monitoring station with Maya, Wilson and Sentinel, coordinating the operation via secure communications. "Once we've secured the victims, our priority shifts to locating Jacob Turner and the third facility," he instructed. "Based on these records, we're dealing with a highly organized operation with significant resources." Maya was reviewing additional files recovered from the cabinets. "Captain, I think I know why they targeted these specific children," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "According to these assessments, all 3 children demonstrated unusual cognitive abilities, what they're calling neural elasticity. Essentially, their brains form connections more rapidly than average. They're experimenting on gifted children," Wilson surmised grimly. "Not just experimenting," Maya corrected, holding up another document. "They're enhancing them. The Meiji Ascension project isn't just about cognitive development. It's about creating what these files refer to as transcendent intelligence. They believe they've discovered a method to exponentially increase human cognitive capacity through a combination of genetic modification, chemical stimulation, and neural implants. The tactical team's success in accessing the holding area interrupted further discovery. Within 20 minutes, both Mia Reyes and Charlotte Turner had been safely extracted and were receiving emergency medical care. Mia was conscious but disoriented, exhibiting signs of sedative withdrawal, but no immediate indication of experimental procedures. Charlotte Turner's condition was more serious. Surgical incisions along her hairline suggested neurosurgical intervention, and she remained unresponsive despite the withdrawal of sedation. As the medical team prepared both victims for emergency transport, Sentinel's behavior shifted noticeably. The focused calm that had characterized his guidance through the tunnel system gave way to increased vigilance, his attention drawn repeatedly to the direction they had originally entered from. Wilson recognized the change immediately. "Something's wrong," he warned. "He's alerting to potential threat." Captain Harlow didn't hesitate. "Secure the evidence and prepare for immediate evacuation. All personnel, defensive positions." The warning came not a moment too soon. From the main tunnel entrance, they heard the distinctive sound of an explosion, followed by the rumble of falling rock. Someone had detonated charges at the tunnel entrance, potentially sealing them inside. "Secondary exit," Harlow demanded. Turning to Wilson and Sentinel, "Does the dog know another way out?" Wilson looked to Sentinel, who was already moving toward a different passage than the one they had entered through. "I believe he does, sir." With the tactical team providing security and medical personnel managing the transportation of the two victims, they began a rapid but controlled evacuation following Sentinel's lead. The German Shepherd moved with newfound urgency, no longer favoring his injured paw as adrenaline overrode discomfort. The passage he selected twisted through natural limestone formations before gradually ascending toward what they hoped was the surface. Radio communications had been compromised by the explosion and surrounding rock, leaving them isolated from the command center above ground. After approximately 10 minutes of careful navigation, they encountered a junction where the passage split in 3 directions. Sentinel paused, visibly assessing each option before decisively selecting the rightmost path, a narrow, vertical chimney that would require climbing rather than walking. "He's indicating a vertical escape route," Wilson translated, recognizing the dog's trained behavior for such scenarios. "This likely leads to a surface vent or maintenance access." "Captain." Harlow made the call. "Wilson, take Sentinel and secure the exit point. Rodriguez, coordinate the victim evacuation with the medical team. Tactical will provide rear security in case we're being pursued." Wilson attached a lightweight climbing harness to Sentinel's K9 tactical vest and began the ascent with the dog balanced securely against his chest. The chimney extended approximately 30 feet upward before opening into what appeared to be a maintenance shed, similar to the one they had discovered the previous day. After confirming the shed was secure, Wilson signaled for the rest of the team to follow. One by one, they emerged from the underground complex into a structure situated near what had once been the quarry's administrative buildings, approximately a quarter-mile from where their investigation had begun. As the medical team established a triage area to stabilize the victims before transport, Captain Harlow contacted the command center via satellite phone to report their situation and request immediate security around the new extraction point. "We have multiple injured, including 2 rescued victims," he reported. "Be advised, the tunnel system has been compromised by explosive devices. We need EOD and structural engineers before any attempt to re-enter." Maya approached with the medical files they had managed to secure before the evacuation. "Captain, I found something critical in these records, she said urgently. The reference to Site Omega isn't just another facility. It's a person, Dr. Elias Kelman himself. These notes refer to him as Omega Subject Zero, the first recipient of the Complete Enhancement Protocol. Harlow's expression darkened. You're saying the grandson of the property owner is the mastermind? And the primary test subject, Maya confirmed. According to these records, he underwent the initial procedures 15 years ago. That's when the first children began disappearing. The implications were staggering. They weren't just dealing with unethical scientists conducting illegal experiments. They were confronting someone who had used the technology on himself, potentially granting capabilities they couldn't yet comprehend. As federal reinforcements arrived to secure the area, Maya found herself watching Sentinel, who had taken position at the perimeter of their temporary command post. Despite his ordeal, the dog remained vigilant, his attention focused outward, as if aware the danger was far from past. Wilson joined her, offering a water bottle which she gratefully accepted. He knows it's not over, the canine officer observed, nodding toward Sentinel. Dogs have an awareness we sometimes miss. They sense the rhythms of a situation, the emotional undercurrents. Lieutenant Torres trained him differently than standard K9 units, Maya noted. More independence, more problem-solving. He said, something to me once that stuck with me, that the difference between a good police dog and a great one isn't just obedience, it's partnership. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of FBI Assistant Director Caroline Bennett, who had assumed overall command of the investigation following the discovery of its multi-state implications. We've identified the 3 remaining active facilities, Bennett informed them, gathering the senior officers for an impromptu briefing. Satellite reconnaissance confirms activity at the Montana location, a former military research installation that was supposedly decommissioned in 2010. We're coordinating simultaneous raids on all 3 sites, but our intelligence suggests Jacob Turner has already been transported to Montana. Captain Harlow highlighted their latest findings regarding Dr. Elias Kelman's personal involvement in the experiments. We're not just dealing with abduction and illegal experimentation, he emphasized. If these records are accurate, we're confronting someone who has been systematically enhancing his own cognitive abilities for over a decade. Bennett absorbed this information with professional calm, though her eyes betrayed concern. Which makes the recovery of the Turner boy all the more urgent. The latest medical data in these files suggests they're accelerating the integration protocols. Whatever they're planning with him, it's happening now. As the briefing continued, Sentinel suddenly shifted position, his attention drawn to the approaching sound of helicopter rotors. Within minutes, a medical evacuation helicopter landed in the cleared area nearby. To everyone's surprise, Lieutenant Michael Torres emerged, supported by medical personnel, but clearly having insisted on returning to the investigation, despite his injuries. Sentinel's response was immediate. He moved to Torres's side with evident relief, pressing against the lieutenant's leg as the man carefully knelt to greet him. "You shouldn't be here," Captain Harlow stated firmly, though his expression conveyed understanding rather than criticism. Torres looked up from where he was examining Sentinel's bandaged paw. "With respect, Captain, I'm exactly where I need to be. I infiltrated Kelman's operation 6 months ago. I know how he thinks, how he operates, and most importantly, I know what he's trying to achieve." With Torres' assistance, the briefing evolved into a comprehensive, strategic planning session. According to the lieutenant's intelligence, Dr. Elias Kelman had been pursuing what he termed cognitive transcendence for most of his adult life, following research his grandfather had initially funded during the Cold War. Augustus Kelman wasn't just a mining magnate. Torres explained, referring to files he had accessed during his undercover work. He was obsessed with human potential, specifically accessing capabilities beyond normal cognitive limits. He funded black-budget research that the government eventually abandoned as too risky, but the family continued privately. The experimental protocols had evolved through 3 distinct phases: initial cognitive enhancement through chemical compounds derived from rare fungi found in the limestone caverns beneath the Kelman property, neural pathway modification through precision electrical stimulation, and finally, the integration of specialized graphene-based neural interfaces that essentially created an artificial expansion of the brain's processing capabilities. Elias Kelman underwent all 3 phases, Torres continued, his voice tight, with controlled anger. But the process was imperfect. The adult brain has limited neuroplasticity. It can't fully adapt to the enhancements. That's why they shifted to child subjects. Their developing neural structures can integrate the technology more completely. And Jacob Turner, Assistant Director Bennett pressed. Torres's expression darkened. According to what I discovered, before they captured me, Jacob showed unprecedented compatibility with the protocols. They believe he's the first subject capable of complete integration, what they call Ascension State Alpha. The implications hung heavily in the air. They weren't just racing to rescue a kidnapped child. They were trying to prevent the creation of something unprecedented, a human consciousness enhanced beyond normal limitations by illegal and unethical means. As the planning for the coordinated raids progressed, Maya found herself returning to the recovered files, searching for additional insights that might give them an advantage. One document in particular caught her attention, a personal journal entry from Dr. Elias Kelman that had been included in the research records. Subject 0, self, continues to experience expanded cognitive function, but with increasingly concerning side effects. Memory consolidation remains problematic, with significant gaps in temporal continuity. Emotional regulation deteriorates in proportion to cognitive enhancement. The fundamental challenge remains unresolved. The human brain appears to require certain limitations to maintain psychological stability. Removing these limitations creates capability at the expense of humanity. The child subjects may provide the solution. Their developing neural structures could potentially achieve balance where adult subjects have failed. Maya shared the entry with Torres, who nodded grimly. That matches what I observed during my infiltration. Kelman is brilliant, but increasingly unstable. He's experiencing progressive dissociation, periods where he loses connection with normal, human empathy or even recognition of basic human needs. He's sacrificing his humanity for intelligence, Maya summarized. And now he believes Jacob Turner is the key to achieving enhancement without those sacrifices, Torres concluded. As darkness began to fall once more over the Kelman property, the coordinated operation to raid all 3 remaining facilities was finalized. Strike teams would deploy simultaneously to prevent any warning reaching the primary target in Montana. Torres, despite medical advice to the contrary, had been cleared for limited advisory duties, his knowledge of the operation deemed too valuable to lose. Sentinel would accompany him, serving as both partner and, in recognition of the dog's demonstrated abilities, a tactical asset. In the quiet moment before deployment, Maya watched as Torres and Sentinel sat together outside the command post, the lieutenant speaking softly to the dog while checking his equipment. There was something profoundly moving about their reconnection, a partnership forged through shared purpose and mutual trust that transcended normal human-canine relationships. Wilson approached, carrying Sentinel's specialized tactical vest. "We've modified it to accommodate his injury," he explained, handing the equipment to Torres. The medical team isn't happy about him deploying again so soon, but they understand the circumstances. Torres carefully equipped Sentinel with the vest, checking each fastening with practiced hands. "He wouldn't stay behind anyway," he said, quietly. "Not when the mission isn't complete." "How did you know?" Maya asked suddenly. "When you sent him with that shoe, how did you know he'd make it back to the station? That he'd lead us back here?" Torres paused, his hand resting on Sentinel's shoulder. "I didn't know," he admitted. "I hoped. When they shot him and threw me into that quarry pit, I thought we were both finished. But then I saw him dragging himself out of the water despite his wound." A faint smile crossed his face. "That's when I knew if anyone could make it, he could. So I tied that shoe to his collar, the only evidence I had managed to secure, and told him to find help." "He did more than find help," Maya observed. "He led an entire tactical operation." Torres nodded, pride evident despite his fatigue. "That's because he understands what we're really doing here." He gazed toward the darkening sky, his expression resolute. "We're not just saving one child. We're protecting what makes us human, in the first place." As the teams prepared for deployment, Sentinel stood alert beside Torres, his posture conveying a readiness that belied his recent injuries. Whatever challenges lay ahead in Montana, whatever confrontation awaited them with Dr. Elias Kelman and his enhanced capabilities, the German Shepherd's unwavering commitment served as a powerful reminder. Sometimes the most profound humanity was demonstrated not by remarkable intelligence or technological achievement, but by simple, unbreakable loyalty and the courage to stand against darkness regardless of the cost. The mission to save Jacob Turner, and potentially to preserve the very nature of human consciousness itself, would begin at dawn. The Montana facility rose like a fortress against the backdrop of the Bitterroot Mountains, its weathered concrete, exterior belying the cutting-edge operations concealed within. Formerly designated as Research Station Echo 7, the repurposed military installation had officially been decommissioned in 2010, its remote location removed from government asset registries and its existence virtually erased from public records. Now, as dawn crept over the eastern ridgeline, the compound showed subtle signs of active occupation. Infrared satellite imaging revealed heat signatures consistent with significant power consumption, while discreet aerial surveillance had confirmed regular supply deliveries over the previous 3 weeks. In the makeshift command center, established 10 miles from the target facility, Lieutenant Michael Torres studied the tactical display with focused intensity. Despite his injuries, he remained the operation's most valuable intelligence asset, his 6 months of undercover work having provided crucial insights into the Ascension Project's security protocols and operational structure. The facility is designed with 3 concentric security layers, Torres explained to the assembled tactical leadership. Perimeter defenses include motion sensors, thermal imaging, and anti-drone countermeasures. The central research wing, where they're likely holding Jacob, is protected by biometric access and emergency lockdown capabilities. Assistant Director Bennett nodded, absorbing the information with practiced efficiency. Our surveillance indicates 23 personnel on site, likely a combination of security and research staff. Thermal imaging shows a concentrated heat signature in the northeastern quadrant, consistent with active laboratory equipment. Captain Harlow pointed to the facility's power infrastructure displayed on the tactical map. The entire operation runs on an isolated grid with redundant generators. Standard power disruption tactics won't create sufficient distraction. They're not just prepared for interference, Torres added grimly. They're expecting it. Dr. Kelman's enhanced cognitive capabilities include predictive modeling based on available variables. He'll have anticipated potential raid scenarios and prepared countermeasures. Maya Rodriguez, who had been reviewing the recovered medical files with the FBI's forensic psychology team, joined the tactical briefing with troubling new insights. "Dr. Kelman's condition is deteriorating faster than we initially understood," she reported, distributing digital copies of her analysis. "The enhancement protocols have created a progressive neural instability. According to these clinical notes, he's experiencing extended periods of what they term cognitive drift, essentially dissociation from normal human perception and emotion, which makes him more dangerous, not less," Torres noted. "He's becoming increasingly single-minded about completing the procedure on Jacob Turner. In his perception, achieving successful integration with a developing brain will provide the solution to his own deterioration." The tactical plan had evolved throughout the night, incorporating intelligence from multiple sources and adapting to the unique challenges presented by Kelman's operation. Standard approaches would be insufficient against an adversary capable of anticipating conventional strategic thinking. "We need asymmetric tactics," Assistant Director Bennett concluded, "something that exists outside Kelman's predictive modeling." All eyes turned to Sentinel, who sat attentively beside Torres, his focused alertness a stark contrast to the lieutenant's visible exhaustion. Throughout the planning session, the German Shepherd had remained vigilant, occasionally reacting to specific facility schematics with subtle but noticeable changes in posture. "Sentinel recognizes elements of the facility layout," Torres observed. "The Ascension project operated on a cellular structure. Different teams worked on different aspects of the protocols, often at separate locations. Based on his reactions, I believe he was present during some phase of the operation at this facility." Wilson, who had accompanied them from Lakeside as Sentinel's handler, studied the dog's behavior with professional interest. "He's displaying recognition markers, not anxiety responses. Whatever he encountered there wasn't traumatic." This insight catalyzed a critical evolution in their tactical approach. Rather than attempting to breach the facility through conventional means, which Kelman would likely anticipate and counter, they would incorporate Sentinel's unique knowledge into a multi-phased insertion strategy. The facility was originally constructed with maintenance access tunnels designed to withstand Montana's extreme weather conditions, Torres explained, highlighting a network of subterranean passages not included in the public decommissioning records. Standard protocol would seal these during high-security operations, but they might not register as priority vulnerabilities in Kelman's defensive calculations. The plan that emerged was precisely the kind of asymmetric approach that might circumvent Kelman's enhanced predictive capabilities. While an overt tactical team would approach from the designated access road, creating the appearance of a standard law enforcement operation, a specialized insertion team, including Torres, Wilson, and Sentinel, would attempt entry through the maintenance tunnel system. Maya would coordinate from the command center, synthesizing intelligence and managing communications between the operational elements. Her analytical skills and growing familiarity with the Ascension Project's documentation made her ideally suited for identifying critical information during the rapidly evolving operation. As final preparations were completed, Medical Officer Chen approached Torres with evident concern. "Lieutenant, I need to register my formal objection to your participation in field operations. Your injuries require continued medical supervision, and the physical demands of this mission could compromise your recovery." Torres acknowledged her professional assessment with respect, but remained resolute. "Your objection is noted, Doctor, but my presence increases the operational success probability, and that's the priority." Dr. Chen turned her attention to Sentinel, conducting a final examination of his injured paw. "The tissue is healing well, but he's pushing physiological limits. I've applied a specialized protective covering, but it won't prevent additional damage under extreme stress. Wilson secured the last components of Sentinel's tactical harness, which had been modified to incorporate specialized equipment for the operation. "He understands what's at stake," the K9 officer said quietly. "Dogs like Sentinel don't measure cost the way we do. They assess necessity." As the team prepared for deployment, Maya approached Torres with a final intelligence update. The forensic team completed their analysis of the files recovered from the Kelman property. They've identified a critical vulnerability in the enhancement protocols. She handed him a tablet displaying complex neurological data. The integration process requires precise neurochemical balance during implementation. Too much adrenaline disrupts the procedure and can trigger a systemic rejection of the implanted interfaces. Torres studied the information with narrowed eyes. "So, if we can induce a significant stress response in Jacob during the procedure, it could prevent completion of the final integration phase," Maya confirmed. "But timing would be critical. Too early, and they simply postpone. Too late, and the damage might be irreversible." This final piece of intelligence added yet another dimension to their already complex operation. They weren't simply conducting a rescue mission, they were racing to prevent the completion of a procedure that might permanently alter a child's neural development in ways science had never explored. As dawn strengthened into morning light, the tactical teams moved into position. The primary force established containment around the facility perimeter, while the specialized insertion team approached the maintenance tunnel entrance, concealed within a drainage culvert half a mile from the main compound. Torres, Wilson, and Sentinel, accompanied by 4 specially selected FBI tactical operators, prepared for subterranean infiltration. Each team member carried minimal equipment optimized for the enclosed environment: lightweight tactical gear, specialized communications, devices designed to function in underground conditions, and non-lethal incapacitation options to minimize risk to potential hostages. Sentinel, equipped with his modified tactical harness, displayed none of the anxiety a normal dog might exhibit before entering confined underground spaces. Instead, his body language conveyed focused readiness, the posture of a working dog, fully engaged with a critical mission. "Final communications check," Torres instructed as they prepared to enter the tunnel system. Each team member confirmed operational status, their voices calm and professional despite the unprecedented nature of their mission. Maya's voice came through their specialized earpieces with reassuring clarity. "Command confirms all units in position. Primary diversion initiates in precisely 7 minutes. Tunnel infiltration is go." Torres knelt beside Sentinel, removing the lead from his harness. This would not be a standard handler-directed operation. The German Shepherd would need to navigate independently, making decisions based on his previous knowledge of the facility. "Find Jacob," Torres instructed simply, using the command phrases they had established during their years of partnership. Sentinel's ears perked forward in acknowledgement, his focused gaze moving toward the tunnel entrance. The maintenance tunnel was narrower than their intelligence had suggested, a concrete passage barely 5 feet in height, requiring the team to advance in a modified crouch. Sentinel led without hesitation, his movement suggesting familiarity with the route, despite the challenging conditions. "He's not tracking a scent," Wilson observed quietly as they progressed deeper into the tunnel system. "He's navigating from memory, remarkable spatial recall." Torres nodded, conserving his energy as they moved. His injuries protested with each careful step, but the discomfort remained manageable, a constant reminder of what was at stake rather than a limiting factor. After approximately 12 minutes of careful advancement, they reached a junction where the main tunnel branched into 3 separate passages. Sentinel paused, head turning methodically to assess each option before decisively selecting the central route. Command, be advised we're proceeding through Central Junction Pathway, Torres reported softly. Sentinel indicates confidence in route selection. Maya's response came immediately. Confirmed. Primary diversion initiates in 30 seconds. Expect facility alarm activation. Right on schedule, they heard the distant wail of security alarms echoing through the tunnel system. The primary tactical team had initiated their diversionary approach, a textbook law enforcement containment operation that would draw security attention to the facility's main entrance. Sentinel's pace increased slightly as they continued forward, suggesting they were approaching a critical access point. After another 100 yards, the tunnel terminated at a maintenance hatch secured with both mechanical and electronic locking mechanisms. One of the FBI technicians moved forward, examining the electronic security system. Standard RFID protocol with backup mechanical tumbler. I can bypass the electronic component, but the mechanical lock will require physical manipulation. As the technician worked on the electronic system, Wilson produced specialized lock manipulation tools from his equipment pouch. Standard FBI entry toolkit. Not exactly department approved for local law enforcement, he remarked with a tight smile as he began working on the mechanical lock. Torres maintained communication with the command center, receiving updates on the diversionary operation. Primary team reports expected security response. Facility has initiated lockdown protocols, but internal movement remains active according to thermal imaging. The technician's bypass of the electronic system succeeded first, indicated by a subtle shift from red to green on the small status indicator. Wilson's manipulation of the mechanical lock proved more challenging, but after 90 seconds of precise work, they were rewarded with the distinctive click of tumbler alignment. Access secured, Wilson confirmed, returning his tools to their pouch. Ready for entry on your command. Torres glanced at his tactical display, confirming synchronization with the larger operation. Command, insertion team preparing to breach maintenance access point. Request status update on primary target. Maya's response conveyed controlled urgency. Thermal imaging shows concentrated activity in what appears to be the main laboratory. 7 heat signatures in close proximity, one significantly smaller than the others, likely Jacob Turner. Torres made the call. Execute entry. Sentinel takes point. The maintenance hatch opened to reveal a utility corridor within the facility's lower level. Emergency lighting cast alternating pools of shadow and dim red illumination, indicating the facility had shifted to secondary power systems in response to the perceived threat. Sentinel moved forward with practiced stealth, his paws nearly silent on the concrete floor. The tactical team followed in tight formation, maintaining visual contact in the low-light conditions while minimizing their sound signature. According to the facility schematics Torres had memorized during his undercover work, the main laboratory should be located 2 levels above their current position. The challenge would be navigating to that location while avoiding security personnel responding to the diversionary operation. They advanced through the utility corridor until reaching a service elevator designed for equipment transport. The electronic access panel showed the elevator was locked in security mode, non-responsive to standard commands. I can bypass, but it will leave evidence of electronic intrusion, the FBI technician advised. They'll know something breached this system. Torres weighed their options. Using the elevator would significantly accelerate their approach to the laboratory level, but might trigger additional security responses. Continuing through the maintenance passages would be slower, but maintain the element of surprise. The decision was made for them when Sentinel suddenly altered course, moving toward what appeared to be a standard ventilation grate in the corridor wall. The dog pawed at the grate with evident purpose, then looked back at Torres with unmistakable intent. "He's indicating an alternative route," Wilson interpreted, examining the ventilation system. "This appears to be part of the original air circulation infrastructure, likely connects multiple facility levels." Torres made the call. "We follow Sentinel's lead. Secure the grate." The ventilation system proved to be more spacious than expected, clearly designed for maintenance access rather than simply air circulation. Sentinel navigated the passage with confident precision, leading them through a complex series of junctions and vertical shafts that gradually brought them closer to the facility's core. Throughout their progression, Maya provided regular updates from the command center. The primary tactical team had established full perimeter containment, engaging facility security in a controlled standoff that maintained their attention focused outward rather than inward. Thermal imaging shows movement patterns consistent with accelerated activity in the laboratory, Maya reported. They appear to be preparing for evacuation or procedure completion. Whatever they're doing with Jacob, they're expediting it. This intelligence heightened the urgency of their approach. After navigating through approximately 200 yards of ventilation infrastructure, Sentinel paused before another access. A grate. Through the metal slats, they could see into what appeared to be a storage room, adjacent to a larger space, illuminated with harsh fluorescent lighting. Torres moved forward carefully, positioning himself to view through the grate. The angle provided limited visibility into the larger space, but what he could see confirmed they had reached their objective. Advanced medical equipment, monitoring stations, and personnel in laboratory attire moving with purposeful efficiency. "Command, we have visual confirmation of the laboratory," Torres reported softly. "Preparing for final approach. Request facility status update." Maya's response was immediate. "Security personnel remain engaged with primary team at main entrance." Internal thermal signatures show 2 armed individuals outside laboratory entrance and 5 personnel within the laboratory itself. The smallest heat signature, presumed to be Jacob, is stationary in the center of the room. Torres outlined their final approach plan. They would breach through the storage room, utilizing non-lethal methods to neutralize any security personnel before entering the main laboratory. Their primary objective was securing Jacob without triggering emergency protocols that might prompt Kelman to take drastic action. As the tactical team prepared for the final phase, Sentinel's behavior suddenly changed. The German shepherd's attention fixed on something within the laboratory space. A low growl building in his throat, not the alert of discovery, but the recognition of a specific threat. Wilson recognized the change immediately. He's identifying a primary target, someone he recognizes as hostile. Torres adjusted his position to obtain a better viewing angle through the grate. What he saw sent a chill through him despite years of professional detachment. In the center of the laboratory, Jacob Turner lay unconscious on a specialized medical table, connected to multiple monitoring devices. Standing over him, directing the activities of the laboratory personnel, was a tall, gaunt man whose appearance defied standard description. Dr. Elias Kelman had physically transformed through his self-experimentation. His unnaturally pale skin contrasted sharply with the dark protective goggles covering his eyes. A complex neural interface system connected to his skull through precisely positioned access ports, with hair shaved in geometric patterns to accommodate the technology. Most disturbingly, his movements possessed an unsettling precision, too calculated, too efficient for natural human motion. He operated with the mechanical grace of someone whose every action was the product of computed optimization rather than intuitive movement. Visual confirmation of primary suspect, Torres reported, his voice tightening. Dr. Elias Kelman is directly supervising the procedure. Subject Jacob Turner is unconscious, but appears stable based on monitoring equipment. Myers' response conveyed the gravity of the situation. MRI analysis of the recovered medical files indicates they're in final preparation for neural interface implementation. If they complete that phase, reversal becomes exponentially more complex. Torres made the final call. Execute breach. Priority 1 is securing Jacob and preventing procedure completion. The tactical team moved with synchronized precision. The storage room access grate was removed silently, allowing Sentinel to enter first, followed by the human operators. The room contained standard laboratory supplies and equipment, with a single door leading to the main laboratory space. Torres positioned the team for optimal entry, with Sentinel held in tactical reserve. The German Shepherd's presence, unknown to those within the laboratory, would provide a critical element of surprise if needed. The breach was executed with textbook precision. 2 operators deployed specialized non-lethal stun devices through the partially opened door, temporarily disorienting the laboratory personnel. The tactical team followed immediately, securing the room perimeter while Torres and Wilson moved directly toward Jacob. What they hadn't fully anticipated was Dr. Kelman's response. While the laboratory technicians reacted with human disorientation to the breach, Kelman remained unnervingly composed. His movements did not accelerate with panic, but rather achieved a new level of calculated efficiency. "Fascinating," he observed, his voice carrying an unnatural cadence. "You've identified the maintenance access vulnerabilities, an approach probability I calculated at less than 8%. His attention fixed on Torres with mechanical precision. "Lieutenant Torres, your survival was even less probable." De Torres maintained his focus on the objective, advancing steadily toward Jacob, while the tactical team secured the laboratory personnel. "Dr. Kelman, you're under arrest. Step away from the boy." Kelman made no move to comply, his goggled gaze shifting between the tactical team members with analytical detachment. "You misunderstand the significance of what's happening here, Lieutenant. Jacob represents the solution to problems you cannot comprehend. His cognitive integration will advance human capability beyond current limitations." "What you're doing isn't advancement," Torres countered, continuing his careful approach. "It's exploitation, experimentation on children who cannot consent." "Ooh," Kelman's expression shifted subtly. "A simulation of human emotion rather than its genuine expression. Consent is a social construct designed for standard cognitive parameters. What we're creating transcends those limitations." His hand moved toward a control panel embedded in the medical table. "Unfortunately, this means I cannot allow your interference." In that critical moment, Torres gave the command they had prepared. "Sentinel, secure!" The German Shepherd launched from his concealed position with explosive speed, targeting Kelman with the precision of years of tactical training. Instead of attacking, however, Sentinel executed a specialized containment maneuver, positioning his body between Kelman and the control panel while maintaining a defensive posture that prevented the doctor from reaching Jacob. Kelman's reaction revealed the first genuine emotion they had witnessed: surprise. "The K9 unit, you brought the dog." Something flickered behind his protective goggles, a variable I failed to incorporate. With Kelman contained by Sentinel's unwavering position, the tactical team secured the remaining laboratory personnel, while Wilson and Torres attended to Jacob. The boy remained unconscious, connected to sophisticated monitoring equipment that displayed his neural activity in real time. "Command, we have secured the primary subject," Torres reported. "Medical evaluation required immediately. Laboratory personnel in custody. Maya's response conveyed both relief and continued urgency. Medical team standing by. Be advised, satellite. Communications indicate approaching aircraft, approximately 8 minutes out. Unknown origin, but consistent with private medical transport. Torres turned his attention back to Kelman, who remained unnervingly still, his attention fixed on Sentinel. With analytical intensity. Your evacuation plan? Torres asked, though it wasn't really a question. Contingency response, Kelman confirmed without emotion. The procedure is too significant to abandon. Jacob's integration will proceed at the secondary facility. As the tactical team secured Kelman with specialized restraints designed to prevent access to his neural interface components, Torres conducted a preliminary assessment of Jacob's condition. The boy showed no external signs of surgical intervention, though multiple connection points had been prepared along his scalp. They hadn't begun the final phase, Torres confirmed, with palpable relief. Command: subject is stable, but requires immediate specialized medical evaluation. Preparatory work for neural interface implementation was underway, but not completed. With the laboratory secured and Jacob's immediate safety established, Torres turned his attention to the recovered research materials. The documentation confirmed their intelligence. Kelman had been preparing to implement the complete enhancement protocol, believing Jacob's unique neural structure would achieve what he termed full integration, where previous subjects had failed. As the medical team arrived to evaluate Jacob and prepare him for transport, Assistant Director Bennett entered the laboratory, surveying the scene with professional assessment. 17 personnel in custody, including Dr. Kelman, she confirmed. The facility is secured, and we're processing evidence from multiple research stations. Her attention turned to Sentinel, who maintained his vigilant position despite the situation being contained. Remarkable animal. His intervention was the variable that disrupted Kelman's calculations. Torres nodded, pride evident despite his exhaustion. That's why enhanced intelligence will never truly replace human-animal partnership. Kelman's cognitive modeling couldn't account for Sentinel's intuitive decision-making or our trust in his judgment. As the operation transitioned to evidence collection and medical evacuation, Maya joined them in the laboratory, having transferred from the command center once the facility was secured. She immediately began coordinating the preservation of critical research materials, ensuring nothing was overlooked in understanding the full scope of the Ascension project. The recovered files indicate they've conducted variations of these procedures on 27 children over 15 years, she reported grimly. Most were deemed non-viable after initial phases. The records should help us identify victims and potentially locate additional survivors. Jacob Turner was carefully transferred to the medical evacuation team, his condition stabilized but still requiring specialized neurological assessment to determine whether the preparatory treatments had caused lasting effects. The medical team reported cautious optimism. Without the neural interface implementation, recovery potential remained high. As operations wound down, Torres found a moment of quiet reflection. Seated in what had been Kelman's office, adjacent to the laboratory, he reviewed the doctor's personal journals while Sentinel rested at his feet, finally surrendering to exhaustion now that their mission was complete. The journals revealed the tragic progression of Kelman's self-experimentation, from brilliant scientist to something that had gradually lost connection with its own humanity. The enhanced cognitive capabilities had come at the cost of emotional capacity, ethical reasoning, and eventually even basic human connection. Maya joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the makeshift break area established for the evidence processing team. Medical reports on Kelman are preliminary, but they're remarkable, she said, handing Torres one of the cups. His neural activity doesn't even register on standard parameters. It's like observing a different species. Torres accepted the coffee gratefully. That's essentially what he became. Not evolution, divergence. He nodded toward the journals. He documented the progression, knew he was losing his humanity, but considered it acceptable collateral damage for what he gained in cognitive processing. And Jacob would have undergone the same transformation, Maya noted solemnly. With one crucial difference, Torres added. Kelman believed a developing brain could integrate the enhancements without the same sacrifices. He was using children because their neural plasticity might achieve what his adult brain couldn't, enhancement without disassociation. The full accounting of the Ascension project would take months to complete. Already, specialized teams were deploying to the remaining identified facilities, securing evidence and searching for additional victims. The technology Kelman had developed, while ethically reprehensible in its implementation, represented unprecedented advancements in understanding human neural function. As the sun began to set over the Montana facility, now swarming with federal personnel, Torres and Maya stood outside the main entrance, watching the methodical processing of the scene. Sentinel remained close to Torres, his alertness returning after his brief rest. "What happens to him now?" Maya asked, nodding toward the German shepherd. Torres considered the question, his hand resting lightly on Sentinel's head. Officially, he's still retired from service, but after what he's demonstrated throughout this operation... He smiled faintly. "I think we're going to need a new designation, something that recognizes capabilities beyond standard K9 parameters." Wilson joined them, carrying equipment cases toward the transport vehicles. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit has already submitted a request to study his operational methods, he informed them. They're calling it autonomous problem-solving. In K9 assets, basically they want to understand how he makes decisions independent of handler direction. Torres shook his head with mild amusement. They can study all they want, but some things can't be quantified in reports. Partnership isn't a training protocol, it's mutual trust built over time. As they prepared for departure, Assistant Director Bennett approached with an update that would fundamentally alter the conclusion of their operation. "The aircraft we detected approaching the facility has been identified," she reported, her expression revealing the significance of the information. "Private medical transport registered to Nexus Cognitive Systems, a research corporation founded by Augustus Kelman's original research partner. We've traced financial connections between Nexus and every facility associated with the Ascension project." The implications were immediate and sobering. The conspiracy extended beyond Dr. Elias Kelman's individual operation. It was institutionalized within a corporate structure with significant resources and unknown reach. "This isn't over," Torres concluded quietly. Bennett nodded in confirmation. "We're establishing a specialized joint task force. Lieutenant, given your unique insights and experience with this case, I'm offering you operational leadership once you're medically cleared." Torres glanced down at Sentinel, who looked up at him with alert attention, already sensing the shift in energy. "We accept," he responded without hesitation, "but we work as a team. Sentinel's capabilities have proven critical to this operation's success." Bennett's expression suggested she had anticipated this condition. "Already approved. We're designating him as a specialized investigative asset with appropriate protocols for his welfare and integration." As they prepared to depart the Montana facility, the scope of their achievement settled into perspective. They had rescued Jacob Turner before irreversible procedures could be completed. They had identified and would eventually recover additional victims. They had dismantled a significant portion of an unethical experimental program that had operated in shadows for over a decade. But perhaps most significantly, they had witnessed something remarkable in Sentinel's actions throughout the operation. A demonstration that true intelligence wasn't measured by processing capacity or cognitive enhancement, but by the ability to form connections, make intuitive judgments, and most importantly, to remain loyal to principles that transcended self-preservation. In the dying light of the Montana evening, as they boarded the transport aircraft that would carry them back to coordinate the expanding investigation, Torres found himself reflecting on the fundamental irony of their mission. In his relentless pursuit of enhanced human capability, Dr. Elias Kelman had overlooked the extraordinary cognitive and emotional intelligence already present in the most unexpected of allies, a retired police dog whose unwavering commitment had ultimately unraveled what enhanced human intelligence had tried so carefully to conceal. What began with a bloody shoe carried to a police station had evolved into an operation that would reshape understanding of both human potential and the extraordinary capabilities of the animals who had walked beside humanity throughout history, not as tools, but as partners whose distinct intelligence complemented rather than competed with our own. As the aircraft lifted into the darkening sky, Sentinel settled beside Torres, finally allowing himself to fully relax. Whatever challenges awaited them in dismantling the remaining elements of the Ascension project, they would face them together. Proof that the most profound partnerships transcended species, combining distinct forms of intelligence into something greater than either could achieve alone. 3 weeks after the Montana facility raid, the Joint FBI Local Law Enforcement Task Force had established operational headquarters in a repurposed federal building outside Washington, D.C. What had begun as an investigation into child abductions had evolved into something far more complex, a sprawling case involving corporate espionage, illegal human experimentation, and technological developments with profound ethical implications. Lieutenant Michael Torres sat reviewing case files in the specialized office that had been allocated to him as operational coordinator. His physical recovery progressed steadily, though medical staff continued to monitor the lingering effects of his injuries. Beside his desk, Sentinel lay on a custom-designed rest pad, his alert gaze following the movements of personnel through the glass-walled office. The German Shepherd's formal designation had been upgraded to Specialized Investigative Asset, a classification specifically created to recognize his unique capabilities and contribution to the operation. This status granted him unprecedented access to sensitive operational areas, while establishing protocols for his continued involvement in the expanding investigation. A knock at the door preceded Maya Rodriguez's entrance, her arms laden with fresh intelligence reports. In recognition of her analytical contributions to the case, she had been granted temporary assignment to the Federal Task Force, serving as Torres's primary intelligence coordinator. "The financial traces are finally yielding results," she reported, spreading documents across the conference table. "Nexus Cognitive Systems has shell companies in 7 countries, but we've identified the primary funding channels. Most converge on a holding corporation called Prometheus Initiatives." Torres studied the financial flow charts with focused attention. "Are we any closer to identifying who's actually behind these companies?" Kelman was the scientific architect, but someone's been providing substantial resources. "That's where it gets interesting," Maya replied, producing a specific document highlighted with multiple reference markers. Prometheus Initiatives was incorporated 30 years ago by this man, Dr. Victor Halloway. The photograph showed a distinguished-looking man in his 70s, with piercing eyes and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to influence. His biography outlined an impressive career trajectory: neuroscience pioneer, former military research director, technological innovator with multiple patents, and founder of several influential think tanks focused on human cognitive enhancement. Halloway was Augustus Kellman's research partner during the original military-funded cognitive enhancement program, Maya explained. When the government shut down the project due to ethical concerns, official records indicate Halloway accepted the decision and transitioned to private sector research in legitimate fields. But unofficially, he continued the work through Prometheus, Torres concluded, making the connection. Using Augustus Kellman's resources initially, then bringing Elias into the operational structure once he showed aptitude for the research. Maya nodded. The financial records suggest Halloway has been the true architect of the entire Ascension project from the beginning. Elias Kellman was essentially the lead researcher and primary test subject, but Halloway controlled the funding, infrastructure, and ultimately the research objectives. This revelation significantly expanded the investigation's scope. Victor Halloway wasn't just a financial backer. He represented the strategic mind behind decades of systematic rights violations and illegal experimentation. Torres absently stroked Sentinel's head as he absorbed this information. The German Shepherd had developed an uncanny ability to sense when the lieutenant was processing particularly troubling intelligence, often positioning himself closer during these moments. "What's Halloway's current status?" Torres asked, returning to the immediate operational concerns. "That's the problem," Maya admitted. "He hasn't been seen publicly in almost a year. His official company communications indicate he's pursuing private research at an undisclosed location. But our analysts believe that's cover for something else." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Assistant Director Bennett, accompanied by FBI forensic psychologist Dr. Eleanor Chambers. Their expressions suggested significant developments. "We've completed the preliminary cognitive assessment of Dr. Elias Kellman," Bennett announced without preamble. "Dr. Chambers has identified concerning patterns you both need to be aware of." Dr. Chambers, a renowned expert in abnormal psychology with specialized training in neurocognitive disorders, took the lead in explaining their findings. Using a secure tablet, she displayed brain imaging scans that defied conventional patterns. "Dr. Kellman's neural architecture has been fundamentally altered," she explained, highlighting specific regions with precise movements. "The modifications aren't just technological additions. They've triggered biological adaptations that continue to evolve, even with the enhancement interfaces removed." Torres leaned forward, studying the images with concern. "He's still changing, even in custody." "Correct," Dr. Chambers confirmed grimly. "More concerning is his psychological presentation. He exhibits no emotional responses to stimuli, demonstrates no empathy registers on any assessment scale, and appears to process information in patterns we cannot fully comprehend." "Has he provided any actionable intelligence during interrogation?" Maya asked. Bennett shook her head. "That's the other issue. He responds to questions with what appear to be complex algorithms rather than human communication. Our linguistic analysts believe he's speaking in coded patterns that contain embedded messages we haven't deciphered. He's still communicating with someone," Torres concluded, the implications immediately apparent. "Even in isolation, he's found a way to continue participating in the project." The assessment aligned with Torres's own observations during his undercover work. Elias Kellman had progressively separated from normal human interaction patterns as his enhancements advanced, eventually communicating primarily through what he termed optimized information transfer protocols, essentially repurposing language as a mathematical construct rather than a social tool. "There's something else," Dr. Chambers added, her professional demeanor not quite concealing her discomfort. "During neurological assessment, Dr. Kelman made a statement specifically referencing Lieutenant Torres. He said, "The lieutenant believes the investigation is advancing, but he's merely following a path designed for him to discover. Each revelation is predetermined, breadcrumbs leading to the inevitable convergence." The statement hung heavily in the air, its implications disturbing on multiple levels. It suggested not just that their investigation was compromised, but that it was potentially being manipulated toward some predetermined conclusion. Torres's expression remained carefully neutral, despite his internal concern. Classic psychological manipulation technique. He's attempting to create investigative paralysis by suggesting we're being controlled. Perhaps, Dr. Chambers acknowledged, but his brain scans during this statement showed activity patterns consistent with factual recall, not deception or manipulation. Before they could explore these implications further, Wilson entered with urgent intelligence from the technical analysis team. The specialized team had been working to decode the computerized records recovered from the Montana facility, which had been encrypted using advanced algorithms that had initially resisted standard decryption methods. "We've managed to access the primary research database," Wilson reported, immediately transferring the files to the secure system for viewing. It includes complete documentation of what they call the integration phases, essentially the roadmap for their entire cognitive enhancement program. The recovered files revealed a methodical progression of human experimentation spanning more than 20 years, beginning with foundational work on adult subjects and gradually refining techniques for application to developing neural systems in children. What emerged wasn't just unethical science, but a systematic attempt to create what internal documents termed cognitive ascension, essentially the deliberate evolution of human neural architecture beyond current limitations. Most disturbing were the long-term strategic documents. The Ascension Project wasn't simply about enhancing individual cognitive capabilities. It was designed to create a hierarchical system of enhanced humans operating with specialized neural modifications, all ultimately connected through what they termed the Nexus Protocol. They're not just enhancing individuals, Maya realized, the horror of the implications settling in her voice. They're trying to create a networked consciousness, multiple enhanced minds functioning as components of a larger system. Torres studied the technical specifications with growing concern. According to this, they've already completed successful implementations of Phase 3 protocols in 7 subjects, including Kelman. Phase 4, which appears to be the final integration stage, requires what they're calling the optimal neural foundation. Jacob Turner, Bennett concluded grimly. His neural structure was identified as ideal for the final phase of the project. The implications were staggering. Not only had they interrupted a horrific violation of an individual child's autonomy, but they had potentially prevented a technological breakthrough with profound implications for humanity's future, the creation of a networked consciousness, operating beyond normal human cognitive parameters. As they processed this intelligence, the secure communication system alerted them to an incoming priority message from the medical team monitoring Jacob Turner's recovery. The boy had regained consciousness 3 days after the rescue operation and had been undergoing careful evaluation to assess potential lasting effects from the preparatory procedures he had experienced. Dr. Sarah Emerson, the pediatric neurologist leading his care, appeared on the secure video link. "Lieutenant Torres, we've observed something concerning in Jacob's recovery pattern. While physically he's stabilizing well, he's exhibiting unusual cognitive markers. During standard assessment, he solved mathematical problems far beyond expected, capabilities for his age or educational background." Torres exchanged glances with Bennett. The enhancement protocols may have already affected his neural development, even without the final implementation. Dr. Emerson nodded. More concerning is what happened this morning. Jacob experienced what appeared to be a dissociative episode, during which he spoke in patterns similar to coded algorithms. His exact words were, "Convergence proceeds despite interruption. Optimal pathway remains viable through alternate integration node." The phrasing echoed Kelman's own coded communication patterns, suggesting a connection that should have been impossible given their physical separation and the incomplete nature of Jacob's procedures. "We need to secure Jacob immediately," Torres decided. If Holloway is still operationalizing this project, Jacob remains a primary target. Bennett concurred, immediately authorizing enhanced security protocols for the medical facility where Jacob was receiving treatment. Additionally, she expanded protective measures for all recovered victims and identified a specialized medical team to develop potential reversal protocols for the neurological modifications that had already occurred. As the operational team dispersed, to implement these urgent security measures, Torres remained in the conference room with Maya and Sentinel, processing the expanding implications of what they had uncovered. If Kelman is still communicating with someone despite isolation, and Jacob is exhibiting similar algorithmic speech patterns without direct contact, Maya began. Then the neural modifications may include some form of technological connectivity we don't understand. Torres completed her thought. Possibly quantum entanglement principles applied to neural communication. This possibility represented a scientific breakthrough with profound implications and extraordinary danger if controlled by an organization with Prometheus Initiative's ethical disregard. As they continued analyzing the technical documentation, Sentinel suddenly shifted position, moving from his relaxed state to alert vigilance. His attention fixed on the scientific schematics displayed on the main screen, specifically on architectural renderings of what appeared to be a specialized research facility unlike any they had yet encountered. Torres had learned to trust the German Shepherd's reactions. They often indicated connections or threats that human analysis had overlooked. "Wilson," he called over the secure communication system, "I need you in the conference room. Sentinels alerting to something in the facility schematics." Wilson arrived promptly, observing Sentinel's focused attention on the architectural renderings. After careful assessment of the dog's behavior, he offered his professional interpretation. "This isn't just recognition, it's anticipatory alerting. He's associating these images with something significant that requires action." Torres studied the facility schematics more carefully. Unlike the utilitarian designs of the previous Ascension project installations, this structure featured sophisticated integration of natural elements with cutting-edge technology. A glass and steel complex built into a mountainside with extensive subterranean components. "Run this design through architectural recognition systems," Torres instructed the technical team. "Let's identify if this facility actually exists or if it's still in planning stages." Within 20 minutes, they had their answer. The facility matched the design specifications for a private research center constructed 5 years earlier in the remote mountains of New Zealand's South Island. Officially designated as an environmental research station studying alpine ecosystems, the complex had been commissioned by a foundation with direct financial ties to Prometheus Initiatives. "That's their primary integration center," Torres concluded, "the end point of the entire Ascension project, where they plan to implement the final phase of their networked consciousness system." As they expanded their investigation into this facility, another concerning development emerged. Jacob Turner's security detail reported an unauthorized communication attempt. A specialized medical console in his room had activated without human Interaction, displaying code sequences before security protocols terminated the connection. They're still trying to reach him, Maya noted with renewed urgency. Whatever they implemented during the preliminary procedures created some form of connection they can still access. Torres made a decisive operational call. We need to move Jacob to a specialized containment facility, somewhere with complete signal isolation and advanced medical capabilities. Bennett authorized the transfer immediately, selecting a classified research facility originally designed for quarantine scenarios involving unknown pathogens. The location provided both the medical resources necessary for Jacob's continued care and the electromagnetic isolation required to prevent any form of remote technological access. As preparations for Jacob's transfer proceeded, Torres returned to his review of the technical documentation with renewed focus. Something about the primary integration facility's design nagged at his analytical instincts. A pattern he couldn't quite identify but sensed was significant. Sentinel had remained attentive to the facility schematics, occasionally making soft vocalizations that Wilson identified as indicators of recognition rather than threat assessment. The dog wasn't warning of danger, he was confirming familiarity. "I think Sentinel may have been there," Torres suggested, studying the German Shepherd's reactions. "Not physically, but perhaps through Kelman's documentation or planning materials I encountered during my undercover work." To test this theory, Torres requested access to the specialized cognitive assessment tools Dr. Chambers had been using with recovered victims. With appropriate modifications, these tests might help identify what specific elements of the facility were triggering Sentinel's recognition responses. Dr. Chambers arrived with a portable version of her assessment equipment, intrigued by the opportunity to apply her methodologies to canine cognitive processing. "This is unconventional," she acknowledged, "but given Sentinel's demonstrated capabilities, potentially valuable." The assessment process involved displaying various components of the facility design in isolation while monitoring Sentinel's neurological and behavioral responses. The results proved illuminating. The German Shepherd showed particular recognition patterns when presented with the facility's subterranean components, specifically what appeared to be specialized containment areas designated for Phase 4, integration subjects. "He's recognizing the holding areas," Torres concluded, the implications settling heavily. "This confirms our theory. The New Zealand facility is where they intended to transfer Jacob and the other children for final implementation." As they continued analyzing the facility specifications, a critical insight emerged from the technical team's deeper analysis of the recovered databases. The Ascension Project's ultimate objective wasn't simply creating enhanced human intelligence. It was developing what internal documents termed the evolutionary bifurcation, essentially the deliberate separation of humanity into standard and enhanced cognitive categories. "This goes beyond unethical experimentation," Maya noted, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They're attempting to create a separate evolutionary branch of humanity, one designed to eventually supersede standard human cognitive capabilities." Torres nodded grimly, and Victor Halloway positioned himself to control this transition. The enhanced subjects would be dependent on his technological infrastructure and operational resources. This revelation transformed their understanding of the case from a criminal investigation into something with profound implications for humanity's future. Halloway wasn't just pursuing scientific advancement or even power in conventional terms. He was orchestrating what he believed would be the next stage of human evolution, with himself as its architect. As the task force expanded its operational planning to include international cooperation for investigating the New Zealand facility, Torres received an unexpected communication request from Jacob Turner's medical team. The boy had specifically asked to speak with the man with the special dog, a request his doctors supported as potentially beneficial to his psychological recovery. The meeting was arranged with appropriate security protocols at the specialized containment facility where Jacob had been transferred. Torres brought Sentinel, recognizing the German Shepherd's potential value in establishing rapport with the traumatized child. Jacob's physical appearance showed the strain of his ordeal, thin and pale, with the distinctive shaved patterns where preparatory procedures for the neural interfaces had been performed. Despite this, his eyes remained bright with intelligence. As Torres and Sentinel entered his secure room, "You're the one who found me," Jacob stated simply, his attention immediately drawn to Sentinel. "And he helped you." Torres nodded, taking a seat beside the boy's bed, while Sentinel settled into a comfortable position where Jacob could easily see him. "That's right. Sentinel was very important in helping us find you and the others." Jacob studied the German Shepherd with unusual intensity. "He's special, different from other dogs. They talked about animals sometimes, said they were examples of natural intelligence we don't understand properly." Torres maintained a conversational tone despite the significance of what Jacob was revealing. "Did they talk to you a lot during the procedures, Jacob?" The boy nodded, his expression suggesting he was sorting through complicated memories. "Dr. Kelman explained things while they were preparing me. Said I was going to help create something important, a new way for minds to work together." "Do you remember anything specific about what they were planning?" Torres asked gently, careful not to pressure the boy, but recognizing the potential intelligence value. Jacob's gaze became slightly unfocused, as if accessing information stored in an unusual way. "They called it the Nexus. Many minds connected, together, sharing thoughts without speaking. Dr. Kelman said he was already part of it, but it wasn't complete yet. It needed the right kind of brain to make the final connection." "Your brain," Torres confirmed softly. Jacob nodded. "He said I had the perfect neural architecture, that I would be the keystone." His expression shifted to one of disturbed confusion, but sometimes Dr. Kelman seemed different, like he wasn't really there anymore. He would speak to people who weren't in the room, like he could see or hear things no one else could. This description aligned with their understanding of Kelman's cognitive dissociation, the progressive separation from normal human perception as his enhanced capabilities evolved. More concerning was the confirmation that Kelman considered himself already connected to some form of networked consciousness. As they continued speaking, Jacob gradually revealed additional details about the procedures he had experienced and the conversations he had overheard among the research team. Most significantly, he described recurring references to someone called the Architect, a figure who provided the foundational vision for the entire project, but remained physically separate from its implementation. Dr. Kelman would receive instructions from the Architect, Jacob explained. He seemed both respected and afraid of him, said the Architect had seen the complete pattern while everyone else only saw fragments. This aligned with their intelligence on Victor Halloway's role as the strategic mind behind the Ascension project. What remained unclear was whether the Architect referred to Halloway or possibly to another figure they had not yet identified. Throughout the conversation, Sentinel maintained a calm, attentive presence that seemed to comfort Jacob. Near the end of their meeting, the boy asked if he could pet the German Shepherd, a request Torres granted after ensuring Jacob felt comfortable with the interaction. As Jacob carefully stroked Sentinel's head, something remarkable occurred. The boy's expression shifted from cautious interest to sudden recognition. "He was there," Jacob said with quiet certainty. when they brought me to the first place. I heard them talking about a dog that had escaped with someone important. They were worried about what the dog had seen. This unexpected connection confirmed Torres's suspicions about Sentinel's recognition of the facility schematics. The German Shepherd had indeed been present during some phase of the operation, not just at the locations they had already discovered, but potentially at others still unknown to the investigation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.